in the May. So that's how I got to know about it. So Meshery was one of the active communities I got to see. So I want to learn as I go. I'm learning Golang as of now. So yeah, I want to contribute to Meshery. Excited for that.
Awesome, great. Okay, anyone else?
Oh man, for my part, I missed a little bit, but just a quick recap. So so Karan is here, Kamal, Vrash. There's that character Nishant. He's here, I think. Gotta give somebody gotta harass somebody. Gotta make somebody feel loved. May as well be Mr. Mittal. That's fantastic. Did were there any other folks on this call, this particular call for the first time? Or just any oldies, old folks, old members that want to say something? Nice, okay.
Good to be back on the call. Nice to see y'all.
There he is. There he is. Yeah.
Jared, time for us.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's nice to be back.
Okay.
Mr. Jacob.
Alrighty. So I guess we're done with introductions. So once again, welcome all of you to the Meshery development call. Let's get started off with the meeting minutes. Ruturaj, you're up first.
Yep. Just a second. Let me just set this up.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. So just to give you a context on what this is, we discussed about. So we discussed about this seed content, and we decided that we should rather call it the Meshery catalog, which is just basically a preloaded set of applications, patterns, and filters, which all users would be able to access from Meshery. And if they want to, edit it, they can create a copy for themselves. They can deploy it and try out. So, so this was. Wait, let me share my screen. I'm not sharing my screen. Yeah, so this is basically the design spec that I updated today. So what basically just user flow will just be there'll be like an option for a provider could register that as a capability that they will support catalogs, and then a user could click on the catalogs, have a look at the catalogs. If they want, they can make a copy for themselves, and it will show up in their Meshery applications or designs or filters. So yeah, and the database design is still we're discussing on it, but right now what I'm proposing is that we go what Lee had suggested in the first place, which is to have like a seed column, like a binary column in the table, which just says whether the particular entry is a catalog entry or not. Yeah. That's the thing.
So any comments, any suggestions?
Yeah, like I had one. So this page meshery.io/catalog, we are still building it, right? Or like it's something that is released.
Yeah. That's another consideration in the in the design spec is how different this will be from service mesh catalog. So the one clear difference is that that catalog is not integrated with Meshery. So you can't just or Meshery Cloud. And first and second of all, it's just Meshery stuff. I mean, if some other provider wants to give any other example and other sample content, obviously that is not yet supported. So we're planning to support that, and also more closely integrate the Meshery application. So yeah, that's another consideration. I'll share the spec, I guess. Or I don't know if I can. But yeah, that's basically the consideration.
Yeah, that's a great question, Nishant. if I don't, let me give a little more color if I could. There's a couple of things about Meshery that are, well, pleasantly sophisticated, maybe is the right way of characterizing it. And that is to say that it's an extensible platform. So Meshery has a number of things going on. One of the things that it has going on is that it has extension points. Strategically placed or not, it has extension points throughout its architecture. One of the extension points is something that users get an immediate choice on when they go to deploy Meshery. And it's this concept of a provider, an identity provider or a provider of other things. A provider being this concept of an extension point, wherein Meshery that ships out of the box, it comes with a couple of providers that you can connect to. One of them is called None, and it's just this basic remote provider, or I'm sorry, local provider. These concepts are going to be a little bit. These are concepts that all of you can understand, no doubt, but the way that I'm presenting them, perhaps not the easiest to grok at the moment. Point is, Meshery is a tool that can have users or not. You can choose to sign into Meshery and have a user account or not. That choice is made here as you deploy Meshery. If you say that you don't want to sign into a provider, an identity provider, a user account provider, then you just say none and you're anonymous. You're just using Meshery as a tool that doesn't necessarily have a memory per se, which is to say that it doesn't guarantee persistent storage of your infrastructure. You kind of remember necessarily what you were doing and what's going on. It might come out of the box with some content, like some sample designs, sample patterns, maybe some sample applications, sample WebAssembly filters. And that's great. And go off and use Meshery, be successful, add things, do things, you use it to do performance management, do all the things. If you use it to do performance management, you run a test, and you don't have a user account, well, when you stop Meshery, you stop those containers, that history is probably lost. And so as a user, if you choose to sign into a remote provider, the only other one that's enabled right now is Meshery Cloud, or it's called Meshery. You can go over, anybody can grab a free account. And what you get out of the box is, well, you get some persistent memory. So you get a user account created. And if you run performance tests, for example, this particular account has run 53 tests. And so they can come back and look at those and look at the results. And depending upon what provider you sign into, they might offer different things. One of those being persistence of performance tests, persistence of conformance tests, or other things like MeshMap is an extension that we talk about fairly often. And so that's in part what Ruturaj is alluding to, is this concept of a user. So this user that just signed in, they have a couple of other, they have more content that's been saved under their account because they signed up for an account. So they get to create designs and save their designs. They get to maybe add their own filters or add their own apps and have those saved. And so that's what Ruturaj is referring to. And sometimes it's not even necessary to make that that distinction, because it's just kind of like most people choose to sign in, and when they do, they get access to sample content. There's an initiative that Nishant was just highlighting that a number of you have worked on and are actively working on. This is in like a beta phase, probably about where it is, which is that some of you are helping publish best practices or common patterns, deployment models, or just sample content, some of the same sample content that we were just seeing. And so actually, Ruturaj, I would, as you think through this and consider the things that you're putting into that design spec, I encourage you to think of that content that you were thinking of in the design spec as one and the same as the content that's here in the catalog, if you weren't, such that Meshery UI, when someone is inside of that UI, that the content that someone would see when they go to take a look at designs, that maybe there's just a distinction between content that they've created, a design that they've created here locally, and then maybe another category that's like the rest of the catalog is one way of. I have a few other thoughts to share there that will probably take longer than I should speak. And so I just wanted to kind of give some context as to the differences.
Yeah, that's actually a better idea than if we can just have the catalog. But then, of course, then it also means that all the providers will just have this one catalog, right?
Yeah, I think that's about right. Yeah, that's about right. And that doesn't mean that providers couldn't bring their own, or that is part of your design spec that you, I'll tell you a little bit more later. We can have the chat absolutely for sure publicly. I'll just talk everybody's head off for half an hour if I keep going.
Okay.
But that's great. So actually,
Thank you, Nishant.
Hey, last thing that I have to say as like a point of pride on behalf of some of the work that you all have done. Some of you are working with some of the folks from the HPE engineers who have who focus a lot of their time on Spire. And so there was recently a published design for Istio and a Spire configured Istio deployment. So that's a new entry out in the catalog. So kudos to those that have been working on that. It's cool.
Any other comment or suggestions? Okay, guessing not. So thanks, Ruturaj, for sharing that with us. Moving on, Yash, would you like to share your updates on the UI restructuring?
Yeah, let me share my screen. So as most of you know that we are restructuring our UI for MUI 5 and income and Redux. So I've listed some of the components, updated the tracker for the latest components and the status on what they are. There are also 2 or 3 open components that people can work on, and I will also add more components. So on the updates, I've made the user preferences page. I don't have it running right now. I don't know what's happening in my PC. So just a screenshot, and I've also made the settings page. I don't have them right now. I don't have screenshot of them, but an open PR of that. And other thing I just made is an modal. It's a dynamic modal. It can be used in many places. Just an example of how it would look. And other thing we will be incorporating would be MUI theme creator, which would be really helpful from making themes and making changes in MUI. So, and if anyone else I'm missing that who have worked on the refactoring but have something to demo, please go ahead. So any reviews or?
Actually, I'd just like to add a couple of points. So yes, if you would if you go to the UI restructuring branch and open the README file, I've made some changes. Yeah. So actually, like let me say that like this is like a very good guide. Like if you don't know where to start, like if you want to contribute to this refactoring thing that's happening, and then like you don't know where to start, or like if you have some questions, then we've put together this document which would mostly answer the questions that you would have initially. So do check out this thing before you. Yeah, yeah. Do check it out. And if you scroll down, like I've added two more sections over here. Yeah, we have conventions over here. If yeah, and then like yeah, these are so one more thing like one more thing that's actually important with this refactoring process that you know how to is reviewing the PRs. So it's as equally important as creating the PRs, because yeah, it helps us improve the quality of code and stuff like that. I mean, I don't have to go through the benefits of doing that, but yeah, so when you actually want to review the PR someone has made, or if you want to suggest something better, then yeah, you should feel free to do that. But when you are actually reviewing, there are some things that we try to follow in this new set of I mean, there are basically new set of conventions and things that would be better if we adhere to them. So some among them is that I mean, yeah, we are using MUI, and then like we always try to stay consistent with the way that we are actually doing things, because there are a lot of benefits to that. And one quick example would be that Yash has shown a model, the deployment. I mean, like a model over when he was demoing something. So yeah, if you like, we'll be using models everywhere in our UI code base, and then like. Let's say like let's say like everywhere we are using a model, we're actually creating a new component, and then like they have their own set of styles and stuff like that. Then it becomes very hard for us to, I mean, let's say that you just have to change the structure of how a model looks. Like instead of having a green color, you want to change it to black or something. So in that case, you'll actually have to go to each and every component and just change the styles. But when you have a global component that's defined, like when it is more generalized, it becomes easier for it to, and then you move closer to the more concrete set of components. Yeah, when you actually follow this when you actually follow this convention, then it becomes easier for us to refactor code, or I mean, the ability of changing something in the code base becomes actually much easier, which is directly proportional to, yeah, which is directly proportional to the quality of the code base. So yeah, there are some things that has been added, such as we try to always use MUI styled API. MUI actually provides some other alternatives as well, but then like they'll be dropping the other ones, and then they'll be sticking with MUI styled ones. So it's better if we stick with using one thing, and that will be MUI styled API. And as I said, like we'll have to see to it that we actually reuse the components as much as possible, unless like, I'm not saying like you should actually completely I mean, take it with the, like, you'll know like when you actually have to create a new component. So unless like there is something that cannot be derived from the existing ones, you don't have to do that. So yeah, and one more thing that that is not actually spoken much is that it would be better if we start writing tests to the components that we are generating. So sorry, tests to the components that you're actually creating. So as you know, most of the backend integration stuff are actually done. So the Redux part and observables and stuff like that, those are actually already hooked up. So most of the things that that you guys will be working on would be related to the UI component creation and stuff like that. So there is a component which has tests as well. So if you're creating components, and if you would like to start writing tests for them, then it's yeah, it would be good. So we are not forcing to do that, because like it's not everyone, yeah, it's like you'll have to learn that, right? So that's actually a process. So yeah, if you'd like to invest some time on that, then yeah, it would be great. That's it from my side.
So also thank you. And if anyone have any suggestions or comments, please comment on the PRs or suggesting the Slack channel also. And if anyone wants to contribute, you can follow the README, and if anyone face any problems, you can ask me or ask in the Meshery UI channel. So thank you.
Yeah. So thanks for that, Nithish and Yash. Moving on, Gaurav, you have two topics.
Yeah. Okay, so first topic is about having a grid and table view. So yeah, this has been added quite a long time ago. So it just added a grid and table view for all the configuration, apps, filters, and designs. So currently I'm working on like recently a PR is over there by Ashish for adding source type and source content for the applications. So I'm working on the front end part of adding a source type. So we are following this documentation. Let me also share this in chat. So according to having a source type shown on the applications UI, so we will be having a column for the source type, and according to the uploaded application file, we will be displaying the Docker Compose, K8 manifest or Helm source type with the icon according to that. And when we click on this icon, so it will download the particular application file for the UI from the UI. So currently the downloading feature is not working over there, and I have to add some more updates to the PR. So I'll push that thing. So for this thing, adding a support, I have few queries if like I would like to ask. So currently we are using this slash application API slash application slash types to get the types of different application using method get. And when I'm doing a console over here, so I should be getting a null type value because the current applications do not have a source type and source content over there. So I'm not getting this source content from the console. So maybe some this API needs to be updated in Meshery Cloud itself also. So Ashish, do you have any comment on that?
Yeah, previous. Okay. Yeah, because the as I had said earlier as well, the only change that we would need in Meshery Cloud is inside of the migration files. We'll have to include that column in the table, and that we haven't done right now. So yeah, so that's why the data that we get from Meshery Cloud, it does not have that extra column, so it doesn't have that field. So yeah, so okay, so I guess I'll create a PR in Meshery Cloud, and we can get that merged. Because that would be backward compatible with the current Meshery server that will just be adding a few extra fields. So I guess that that won't break anything, and that can help you to get going with this PR. Other than okay, yeah.
Yeah, that would be much helpful. So other than that, I would also like to discuss this point for having a drop-down support for uploading from the import model. So like currently I've added this restricted input for all these supported file formats over here itself. So but I have a question like why there is a need for having a drop-down for specifying this YAML and like other formats. We can just from the UX perspective, we can have it in the text or a tooltip format. So is there a
in my head, when I said about anything about drop down, I meant inside of that modal only. So while uploading, you can specify. So the modal that you get, yeah, this one in here, like somewhere around here, you could have an list of available types, so you can specify which type it is before uploading the file or before uploading something.
Okay, so the UX would be like that. We'll be having a drop down and selecting particular one type, and that file would only be uploaded.
Yeah, if someone else, someone has some better because I'm not really good at UX, so if someone has a better opinion regarding this thing, so that would be helpful. Although yeah, and we want users to specify which type their file is while they're at the just before they click on import. So it would be on this model only.
Yep. Okay. So yeah, any feedback or comments regarding any suggestions by anyone?
Yeah, I think we could have a drop down on the left of browse in the modal itself for defining which image type. Yeah. left of browse, you could have a drop down.
Yeah. So yeah, I've just started working on this yesterday only. So I'll be like mostly completing this by weekend itself, and I'll be pushing changes to this PR only. Yep, that was all from my side.
Any thoughts or suggestions? Anyone else? Any comments? Okay, I guess not. Thank you, Gaurav and Ashish. Moving on, we have Nishant. Nishant, would you like to speak to your topics?
Yeah. Yeah, so can you see my screen?
Yep.
Yeah, so firstly, I'd like to talk about this migrating Meshery CTL from our own tab to the homebrew-core tab. So the main motive behind this is that the users won't have to do the extra command of brew add meshery/tab, and also it is present in homebrew core, and there will be bottles auto generated, and also the number of downloads will be auto tracked. So here's the progress. So firstly, we need to add our custom formula. So the formula which currently Go releaser generates for us is not a valid formula according to the homebrew core tab. Like it works in our custom tab, but for a homebrew core tab, we need to have some extra fields like description, home page, and all. And also, we can't just use the binaries built by Go releaser in our in the homebrew core. So we need to so what we need to do is we need to put in instructions in this install function, which will tell homebrew how to build our CLI from source. So yeah, so I worked on this formula, and hopefully I think it's a valid homebrew core formula. I've tested it on the audit checks that the homebrew team recommends themselves. And yeah, feel free to please go through this and point out anything that I've missed, or in the build step, or any other test that we can add. So in the test, what we can do is we can add some tests that says homebrew that if these tests pass, then hopefully the installation worked fine. So currently, I created an issue for that also. When we do Meshery CTL version on a fresh installation, it asks for a config file. So that's why we have to pass a y. So that will instruct the CLI to create a default config file. But yeah, it would be nice if this wasn't the case and we can just see the version without any config file. And
Yeah, I
after
think you're right. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you. Go ahead.
yeah, so after that, after we so probably I'll make a pull request today to homebrew core repository. Once if you want to take a look, you can take a look here, and I'll share the pull request, the link of the pull request in this issue as well. And if there is something, some modifications that you would like to do to this formula, please feel free to tell me. And then after that, we need to update our stable release workflow and remove the configurations from Go releaser from to publish it to our this custom tab, and instead we need to integrate a GitHub action which will automatically make a pull request to homebrew core repository, updating the version tag and the commit SHA and all. And yeah, and the third thing which I was unsure about was whether we should continue supporting our custom tab, that is this repository meshery/tab. But yeah, I got to know that homebrew supports migration between tabs, So we can add a JSON file here in this tab saying that we have shifted this meshery-ctl to the official tab. Yeah, the existing users will probably be able to upgrade their CLIs from the official tab now onwards, like after this has been implemented. So yeah, any
Yeah, so I was just saying, yeah, it makes sense in my opinion that we should not need to have a config file for version, because version is like one command that people run just to check if something is installed or not. So I think version should not need those dependencies.
yeah, I think it needs a config to check for the server URL and display the version of the server too. But I think, yeah, we can we can keep it optional. Like if there's a version config file, we can show the version of the server. Otherwise, we can say that it's not configured or something like that.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. The default behavior, I think, should only just give you the version of the client.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to know other people's thoughts also on that.
Yeah, Husseina, you might have some thoughts on that.
I just missed that part. Can you repeat the question? Like the version of this 0.6.0 RC6A, this is the part we are discussing, right?
Yeah, so I was saying that when we type in meshery-ctl version on a fresh installation, which doesn't have anything configured yet, it asks, it prompts the user for a config file. We were discussing that it would be better if we don't need a config file for the version command, because this is a command like users most probably expect to work, and they use it most often to check if their installation worked fine.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah, I was not aware that this prompt comes. Yeah, I need to check. Yeah, it shouldn't ideally ask for a config file.
Yeah, and then
So
Nishant just
any command, right? When we type this version, it should be tied to the source code version that we pulled and compiled, right? So it should be available somewhere with the command itself. So, that's how it should.
Yeah, that's
true. Yeah, the
right?
only problem. Oh, sorry, I just end up talking over people. I'm so sorry. Go on.
No.
Please go ahead.
Oh yeah, so I was saying the reason it needs a config file, as also Nishant mentioned, is because it also gives you the version of the server.
Okay.
But there is a quick question though. But before running the meshery-ctl version, the components of the meshery needs to be installed, right? So I guess that's a
Not
bit of a
really,
question
right?
here.
Because
Not
people actually
necessary.
mostly use meshery.
Yeah, you can install meshery-ctl without deployment as well, right? So you can just install the meshery-ctl itself and choose to run meshery-ctl system start at a later point of time as well.
Okay, then it makes sense.
Yeah, another thing with this server version details not available part, right? So I have seen the kubectl implementation, right? Whenever our Docker related commands, right? If the server is not running, it just gives the client information and then says that server is not running or not available. I think that should be acceptable instead of forcing the users to depend on a config file, right?
So that's what I think Ruturaj also pointed out.
Yeah.
And yeah, so like if there are no other comments, like I'd like to like talk about another task, like related, like a similar task. that is like including meshery-ctl in edge releases. Like currently the users can only install meshery-ctl from our stable releases, like when we do a stable release. And there is I don't think there's any way like users can like simply install edge releases currently. Like user can probably clone the repo and build themselves, but there is no simple way of doing that. After looking a bit, there's a nice way of doing it in homebrew. Like if you see here, as we have defined a head of our repository in the formula. So what the users can do is if they simply install meshery-ctl with this command, like with a head flag basically. So it will build the like current head, the master branch of the CLI for them. And also afterwards they can upgrade the CLI using a similar command, do upgrade meshery-ctl fetch head. Yeah, so I think it will work like if a user wants to build the CLI from the master branch. But as far as other modes of installation like scoop or a script are concerned, I haven't really given a lot of thought yet. But something that like I had an idea. I haven't really thought much on it, but here's what I thought. Like we can use the binaries built by Go releaser and put them somewhere in a separate repository or a release or somewhere. And we can maybe modify our script, the custom script which we have written for installing meshery-ctl, and like add a flag or something for the edge release, and it will pull from there every time when a user wants to download a edge release. So yeah, like as I said, it's not like really well thought at this point of time, but yeah. So,
yeah. Cool, that's great. And Nishant, it's like you've been on this call before or something. You've got two different issues to present, a pull request that changes around the CLI client. Great. Like we've been, one of the goals of the project since its inception has been to delight users, to do delightful things. And if users can use one command to install the CTL, that's great. They don't have to go add a repo to their existing repos. So this is really nice. Just to reflect on potential use of brew add meshery-ctl head, the attractive portion of this possibility is, well, it's just less maintenance for us collectively to add natively to meshery-ctl. So it makes sense to just lean into. It might be also something that maybe brew users are familiar with, or some brew users might be familiar with this convention, and so that might feel natural to them. I'm not, but that doesn't mean that if this is used, or if the capability of brew to provide sort of an edge release channel is leveraged, one challenge we might have is with respect to meshery-ctl system channel. If you haven't spent a lot of time with that particular command, meshery-ctl system channel, play with it a bit. It lets you update your meshery deployment it lets you switch your meshery deployment from one channel to the next. Today, it doesn't switch your meshery-ctl binary from one channel to the next, in part for a few different reasons, in part because people may have installed meshery-ctl using brew or scoop or a bash script, or just gotten it directly. And so that can be figured out. We haven't put in the time and effort to do that. And so one of the things we need to do is just consider the user experience around use of the command meshery-ctl system channel and how that reflects on access to edge versions of meshery-ctl, the CLI itself. So,
okay, I'll take a look. Then,
nice. Yeah, nice. This is great. Sounds like, yeah.
Any other feedback or comment on that? That was great. Thanks, Nishant, for that. That was really insightful. Okay, so moving on then. Uzair, you're up.
Yes. So this is about the handling of expired session. So what was happening? We were, when the session was expiring, we the user should be logged out from the Meshery, but this was not happening. We were redirecting, but due to some course error or some similar error, we were not able to redirect. There is a conversation what was happening and how it is resolved. This was long standing and now it is fixed and merged. So this is the first update, and the second update is regarding applications were not importing. Basically, no network call was made from the UI. So this was because of the wrong destructuring in the function call. So it is also fixed and it is also merged.
Yeah.
So these were my updates.
Shazam. Okay, nice. That first one's been a long awaited for redirect, right? When if someone has established a session, signed into Meshery UI, at some point that session expires. It hasn't always been obvious. Sometimes users will come sit back down at their desk. They start to use Meshery. They're kind of wondering what's going on. Why are they getting errors? And that's because their session is expired. So that redirect is nice. I missed the second thing of what you just said though.
When we were importing applications, it was not able to import. No, basically, no network call was made to the backend. So this is because this was there. Actually, this was the first issue which made me to enter Meshery, and this is merged now, basically.
It all comes full circle now. Okay. Your journey is complete. Thank you for being here. I guess that's it. That's cool.
My first change still hasn't been merged, honestly. All right. Thank you there for that. Oops, sorry, wrong screen. Okay, so moving on then, Alpha. Alpha, would you like to share your updates?
Yep. Give me a sec. Yes. Share. All right. I hope the screen is now visible. So, for like past 2 days, I've been working on an issue which is like a feature request. That is the addition of the screenshots in the meshery-ctl reference section, such that the users can see what the basic usage of the command is, and they can visually refer. Okay, so this is the basic usage of this command. They such that the developers can add the command using this specific symbols which have made them as a rule, as you can see here. So like I've made a logic where if there is a prefix with the certain set of characters, this is for those who are new to this change. For those who already know about this, yeah, they already know. So I was lacking out an example like how this is exactly works when it is implemented in the documentation. So a sample has been added on the meshery-ctl system check command. So right now what you are seeing here, this is the command section. Like you can indicate the developers of the Meshery that this is just the command. Please don't change the below command like that. Anything can be given here as a command, and the star prefix is used to denote the caption of the image, such that the users can know what kind of image it is. And last but not the least is the hash prefix, which denotes the markdown code for the image. So right now the image has been fetched from the Twitter actually, since I don't have more images of the meshery-ctl usage examples right now. And this is the output currently. So yep, that's much of it. The size can be even adjusted using this markdown command. So that's not the major issue here. So any collective feedback from this?
Subedy or Devopriya?
You ask, right? So I've implemented this change.
Nice. Yeah. Hey, one thing to give consideration to is we're not likely to go back and delete those tweets. Well, and maybe you were just giving a quick example, but we might want to consider housing the screenshots local to the repo.
Okay. So
For
you
all the-
mean just storing the images on the repository and then referencing them directly onto this code, and not just using the Twitter examples or any such, you mean?
Yeah,
Is that right?
there aren't nearly as many Twitter fails, Twitter whales that were used. I don't know if everybody remembers those, but yeah, it's on occasion that. But yeah, I would suggest considering keeping them local to the repo. You can still use an HTTP reference, like if that helps from meshery-ctl. But anybody's welcome to suggest otherwise, that like, hey, that Twitter won't establish a an anti-hot linking policy or something like that. I don't know that they would. But...
Okay. Okay, I will consider that change then. Any other feedback, folks? If there is, then yep, I'm done.
Yeah, so
Yeah, go ahead.
I had a question about this, that this code is about telling the users how a screenshot can be taken, right?
Yes, which can be implemented on the meshery-ctl Golang files itself, so that developers need not directly edit onto the markdown page and then do the changes. Rather, they can just add the code here itself using the commands here itself. As you can see here in the example variable, you can just add the code here itself, and it will automatically render using the. Just give me a sec. Meeting controls. Yep, using this file, the GitHub actions will automatically pass from the command to the actual code, so you need not worry about it. That's what it does, actually. Long story short. Does that answer your question, Kamal?
Yeah, got it.
Yeah, okay, fine.
All right. Thank you, Aditya, for sharing that. So, moving on, we have Subedy. Subedy, would you like to share your screen, speak about your topic?
Yeah. So just a quick update. This is regarding the table sorter, in which we are sorting the tables of the past integration test results on according to each field on the call, according to each table header. So now it's complete. Like earlier, there was an issue that when the table was sorted, we could not see the details of it directly below it. So now, after like reading the documentation and experimenting a lot of things, I'm able to do that. So yeah, so I think it's ready for now to it's pretty easy. Like we can incorporate this into all the tables wherever it's needed in the docs file.
Nice. Speaking of new data, is Mr. Hamza on Sekrunda? he's been working on a workflow for end-to-end tests within adapters that would, I don't know if, it sounds like you're aware of that one. So
console.
Can you,
she was working on console.
Yeah. And then hopefully he would take, that would be universal to all of the adapters where output of like either whether it was end-to-end tests, whether it was the sample apps. I think he was just going to augment some of the return data, some additional tests. So if you haven't had a chance to review it,
yeah, I did have a chance, like I did review it regarding the creation of the doc file. Like every time the test ran, it created a new folder, which meant it would delete the last results. So that was a problem I pointed out. I think he fixed it. I have not checked it after that.
Okay, nice. Just for my own benefit and maybe everyone else's, Subedy, if you don't mind, if you go back a page to the compatibility matrix. So we've got a top level summary of kind of, I think, sort of Kubernetes centric compatibility across the adapters. I wonder if it makes sense to have that for Meshery at some point. Ashish, sounds like maybe a good topic for tomorrow's build and release call. But, and then you have a high level summary of, or I guess it's the latest, the results from the latest integration tests across the adapters. I don't see Meshery server necessarily here either. So food for thought about, there's any number of tests that run there as well. Might be good to expose.
Actually, yeah, that's a good point. The same way we test the adapters, we are actually testing the pattern ops capability of the adapters, and when we are deploying just the Kubernetes components in the Meshery server itself acts as a delegator, so it has the Kubernetes component. So I think we should have the same exact tests, these end-to-end tests that we have in our adapters. We should have these tests inside of Meshery server as well, and there we can test the application core component along with the rest of Kubernetes, any number of pod service and all. We can have so basically that would in that way the Meshery component on this matrix would be Meshery server, and that would signify its capability to deploy the Kubernetes components and the core components that it carries with itself.
Okay, so like a field where Meshery server and its status shows, like as you said, its capability to upload Kubernetes and other components, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So like, is that data like available as it is for the adapters?
Yeah, and right now it isn't available. So the first step is, of course, to just like if you go to .github/workflow/ you'll find e2e tests.yaml everywhere in all the adapters. We need to have one of those inside of Meshery server as well. And there we would use the pattern file that we would deploy there wouldn't have any of the adapter stuff. It would have the application component and the rest of the Kubernetes components. So basically a few basic things we can test are pod service deployment, config map, secrets, just things that off the top of my head, these things we can test and put in a single big YAML file. For example, the Istio Spire design, actually, that can be used to have tests in our Meshery server. And yeah, so it would also, but the only thing that would differ is that currently the third job inside of Meshery adapter in all of the tests is the update for docs, where it goes and creates basically commits on the Meshery repository, because in this case the workflow would be running in Meshery, so we would not need to, we would just commit on this repository itself. So most of the things would be same as far as I can tell. So I will create an issue, and we will discuss this in tomorrow's build and release call in detail. And tomorrow I'll go over some of the implementation details. So if anyone is interested in implementing that, just as a homework, you can go check out the .github/workflow/e2etest.yaml inside of any of the adapter, and then I'll explain the rest of how you can go ahead and implement the same thing in Meshery. So we can discuss the rest of it in tomorrow's build and release call.
Right. Thank you, Subedi and Ashish, for sharing that. Anybody have any comments on that, suggestions? Okay, so we have 1 minute left. So I'll just quickly go over my topics. They're very small. So currently we are thinking of, like Lee had brought it up sometime before, we are thinking of having extensions marketplace sort of, where we can have the catalog, mesh map, and even the adapters listed as an extension, and it would be an easy install from there. I didn't have a mockup ready, but since I had already shared the screen there, this is a small mockup that I've been working on. I'm going to iterate more on that. This is a very, yeah, like I started on it like an hour back. So yeah, so something that we're going to work on. And yeah, just wanted to let you guys know, if someone, like, I'll be working on making the mockup, and then maybe we can collaborate or something to make this. And the other topic was, there are a couple of help wanted issues. The link is in the docs, so you guys can go through these issues, and if you see any of them open that you're interested in, please signal, and you can work on that issue. So yeah, I didn't let anyone make any comments on the extension marketplace. So does anyone have suggestions, or is anyone against the fact that we should have one of these? Okay, I guess not. All right, so we are a minute over. I'm sorry we couldn't get to all the topics. We'll discuss these topics next week at the same time. So thank you all for joining. See you guys next week. Bye all.
See ya.
Bye.
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 Bye,
So
guys.
I have a quick question. Jen was here.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Jacob.
Yeah, so I was assigned this task on Monday, and I'm kind of like I need to find the Figma prototype. I don't have access to that, and I don't know where to get it. And also probably a report I'll be committing to while I work on the task.
Yeah, I got the first part about what you said about access to Figma. Sure, yes. And then the second thing you said was it cut out.
Yeah, a repo I'll get to like be committing to, or do I commit it to my repo and get it merged data on? Something I'm not certain of how it works.
Yeah. Oh man. I think you said, hey, I've been trying to build Meshery UI and I could sure use some pointers. But you might not have. I just couldn't understand what you said.
Oh yeah, I said I talked about a repo, a GitHub repository where I'm going to like be committing my progress while I work on the site. That's what I'm asking about.
Yeah. Oh, got you. Yeah, makes sense. On occasion, as people have work in progress, sometimes it's helpful to them to submit like a draft pull request, knowing that it's not time to review it. But sometimes the reason they do it is, one, just to like tell people, to prove that like, oh, hey, they're actually working on it, like don't give it to someone else, I'm doing it. Or like, hey, only if it's sort of an indication that like, only if you really have time, come check it out. Maybe give some early feedback, but don't judge me yet. The third reason why people will do an early PR is because the build process, there's workflows, continuous integration jobs that will kick off and build the premature code, the code that's in flight. And sometimes that's helpful because then you and other contributors can get an understanding as to whether or not their code even builds, or sometimes it's just helpful to like check it in so that other people can get a quick peek at what it looks like in progress. So
yeah. So I just need the Figma prototype right now. So,
yeah. If you don't mind, pop over your email address in Slack, and then we'll get you a Figma invite right away.
All right. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Nice. Nice to see you all. Yeah. See you guys.
Goodbye.